Welcome back, everybody. So tonight I'm going to keep going, at the least with this video, and I wanted to share with the, I believe, 43rd video on the channel, which I'm going to keep, of the long form videos. I'm almost out of breath with this, but I wanted to share the two biggest works in literature, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, in USA history on the reality of dealing with women, and I specifically want to share these two works and to continue to talk about those two works, and to continue to talk about the concepts involved, because this year is 2026, and next year will be the 10-year anniversary of, I think, if I understand correctly, when women on Earth decided to unofficially mark the genocide and extermination and, actually like slavery and things of the sort of the Shia Muslim male, specifically individuals like myself. So it's like, a century earlier, if you had really easily been able to hop on a scale like the scale I have behind me, and find out you have like a 43% body fat after you had spent like $25 on the scale to have it delivered and everything, you couldn't really, you would be like super accurate for then. But now by like 2026, it's just a number. It's like 1,700 calories a day for my, size, will be enough. If I eat 1,700 calories every day with enough protein, and I exercise somewhat like resistance training, I'll lose a bunch of weight, disproportionately body fat. And, I have the number for the body fat. I'm not just called fat anymore. It's like 43% or whatever body fat, compared to having like, a double digit body fat number or like a single digit body fat number, possibly. So, we have a lot more accuracy in what we talk about, whereas like in the past, it was like the best they could get until very, very recently was like, okay, the guy's like around like under 6'2" and maybe like 315 pounds or like 142 kilograms sort of thing. But now we're getting more advanced, technology has gone up. And yeah, it's about to be the 10-year anniversary of extincting the Shia Muslim male. And incorrectly, because humans want to like make a mistake and then make it much better like afterward. And they think this is like the correct way, or those humans believe this is the correct way to continue. But we have a concept in the Middle East, I believe, although I am of the USA. We have a concept which is it's harder than stubborn, but it's like a relative word to being very stubborn, like very, very, very stubborn, like unbelievably stubborn. And so, I just decided to, since this was going to happen, I decided to just give back to, give actually to humans what they had given to me. So I wanted to discuss two works of literature, which are to me undeniably the two top works of literature dealing with women in USA history. So in, I guess, correct order, okay, I'll say correct order. So we have, by a Jewish writer, Jewish American writer, Neil Strauss is the author's name, and we have a book called The Game, and it's sort of made out to be like a Bible. I think many humans have heard of this, but this work relates to pickup artists from, like, I guess like 2 decades earlier or something of the sort. And I was told about this book by a female, like about a little under 2 decades ago, or like around 2 decades ago exactly. And I read the book eventually some years later, and basically this book explains a very basic form of reality with women. And it's like the concept of like the pickup artist has been like derided. It's been made fun of, it's been put down, it's been called weird, awkward, whatever. But it's fundamental to understanding what the situation is between male and female when there are approximately almost just under 8.5 billion humans. So we're moving towards having like 11 billion humans on Earth, or 10.5 billion humans on Earth, if I remember correctly, according to the United Nations. So, I haven't read Casanova or anything of the sort, but when we're talking like past 8 billion humans, we're talking around what, like 4 million, not, am I saying million? I mean billion. We're talking around 4 billion females. Let's say, I don't know what the number is, but let's say like a quarter of those are, so like about 1 billion are, of age and like the sort of group to be approached in a pickup artist sort of scenario. And it's very basic. It's a story of Neil Strauss and how he gets involved in the pickup artist. I don't know if it would be called industry or world or whatever. But so the basic concept is you walk over to a female, you approach, and you talk. Usually it's either like a question or like a statement, basically. So it's the story is a lot different than this, and I don't want to make it so basic, but I really highly suggest you pick up the book, get a copy like earlier than like decades from now if it gets harder to get the book. But basically it's like you approach, you begin the conversation, you try to make the female attracted, and this has to do with appearance also, of course, and then you just sort of seal the deal. Basically, you build up the comfort after the attraction, and then you seal the deal and you finish it. Okay, so what would make this so like unbelievable for me and for you so stupid? Well, okay, in the book, Neil Strauss brings up the concept at a very high level of flying internationally. Like they go to the Balkans, I believe, to Serbia, to Belgrade, and flying internationally and continuing your progress with women as a male. And now we have airplanes. Now we have, like I said, about like 1 billion female humans who are adults, who are not like elderly, and not in some way, in some like an extreme form of trouble. So it's like, it's undeniable that this book is extremely, extremely accurate and extremely true. You can now travel the world by air. There are like a disproportionate number of women available to you. It's broken down into a very simple concept of go up to the woman, talk, make her feel like she enjoys you, make her comfortable, and then, have a relationship sort of thing. And it was like denigrated, but I'm like, okay, well, what work, I'm gonna describe a different work also in USA history. What work in USA history, or even, I haven't read Casanova, but I mean, how would Casanova in any way be as important to now, and especially in USA history, as like what the game is? Because Casanova, I don't understand what the story is with Casanova, but like there weren't airplanes then, there weren't like nuclear bombings, there wasn't like this insane adultery and pornography industry. Okay, so the world has essentially changed in many ways. Humans are still humans, but the game is, as far as I understand, because I've looked into the pickup artist world somewhat, I've looked into the manosphere somewhat, and I still think the pickup artist has to be like the fundamental understanding in USA literature of what it is to relate to women. Okay, so just wanted to bring up the book. Story of a guy who's a writer. He's sort of like a nerdy appearance guy, has, I guess, a hair problem. He's like short and thin. I guess he's Jewish. This is also really importantly understood as a post-Holocaust work. The guy the writer is a Jew, if I understand. He's of the Jews. And it's a post-Holocaust work. It's when we have airplanes post-Holocaust, like commercially, like readily available, despite like the price and everything. But it's very fundamental to understanding the new way humans are going to behave toward each other. And those humans, those males who go out of their way to find women, to have relationships, despite what society does to them. And it's very unusual, the reality that, okay, so Neil Strauss, if I understand correctly, is ancestrally Middle Eastern, okay, because he's a Jew. So it's like he's explaining in very basic understanding what it is to go from being a part of society and do what society wants and be, I guess he brings up in the book, like a sort of robot, but I'm expanding upon, and exploring the world at a higher level. And I've heard like on YouTube, they bring up like losers, where they're from and everything. I'm gonna be honest with you, everybody isn't like me as an individual, as like who I am. They're not gonna put up with like 10 years of women doing as they please. And I've said this in the past, there is a reason males pick up guns and start shooting randomly in like public areas and killing as many humans as they can before they're shot down. And it does have to do with women being very unkind. So like I myself have this scenario where I am a racial undesirable, I am a genocide victim, and I'm held as a slave. And it's like, you know, I'm like just under 6'2". I'm like a large male. I can go from like 43% body fat, as I've explained, easily to like 18% body fat, 17% body fat. And I went to Harvard Law School. I have a Bachelor of Arts from a state college, you know, high level state college, state university in California. I've had a tiny amount of time in the northeast of the US, like around New York City, and you know, which I don't enjoy, but I've traveled to 3 different continents, and it's like, okay, it isn't still not enough. It's an act of warfare, okay? Because no matter how good I am at anything on earth, if no woman ever sleeps with who I am extinct, okay? And it is factually genocide when your genome is removed, okay? Well, genocide means this, genocide means, no. When the genome is removed, it is genocide. Now, I'm not saying it's criminal, but I'm saying it is genocide. So anyways, this was the first book, and the disproportionately higher influential book, because this is fundamentally when, like I'm in 2026 now, and this book fundamentally explains what the relationship is between male and female in the 2020s and after. Okay, possibly slightly earlier then, but like after also. Okay, so, and earlier actually then, and we can say prior, I can say prior, to the, let's say prior to 2017 AD, the possibly highest influential book up to then, though this book relates to what is actually criminal in USA law, generally, and I guess in every state, I would imagine, but Pimp by Iceberg Slim, which was given to me by an individual who, like, so I am Shem on my father's side, disproportionately, and I am Japheth on my mother's side, Japheth Dravidian on my mother's side. This book was given to me by an individual who, if I remember correctly, he is Ham on his father's side, and Japheth, like Amerindian relation, like relative to like the Amerindians in his mother's side. So anyways, what is this book by Iceberg Slim? So I think his actual name is Robert Beck. It's the story of, actually, despite what it seems, several different pimps who were, you know, black humans, like African descended, West African descended in the USA. And the story relates to basic, in a sense, survival when essentially black humans were outnumbered by like Englishmen, relative humans, and they were, they still had very little power as far as having won in, sports and music and like acting and things of the sort, and even in politics. They hadn't had too much power early on. And many of the individuals in the book are in survival mode. The book is mainly about Iceberg Slim and his story, but there are several other pimps and like drug dealers. And the concept is this, which is the most important, which I draw from the book. Okay, so, and I'll try to keep it like less crass, but actually to be a high level pimp, you aren't having sex with the female. And this is the concept. She is having sex with different males, and as much as possible, you are only getting money from her, and you are in as many scenarios as possible never giving her sex. So it's like the least amount of time giving her sex. The higher amount of time she isn't having sex with you, though still sort of working with you. Okay, as a fact, despite what you want to argue. And another thing is preying on a different racial group. So the pimps are, sort of black humans, West African descended, USA humans, and they're generally preying on white humans through the women that they use. Like white male customers is the like target group. So that's another thing. So if you take a lesson from the book, you want to, this is what I had like an extreme amount of trouble with. And it's like non-ending with the Middle Eastern because they only attack each other. It's like literally they like only understand to attack each other, like nonstop. I understand you're like pulling and it causes you to be better with your blood or whatever, but like it's like insane. It's been a quarter of a century since September 11th and they still don't get it. Like all still won't understand. And it's like, it's just like everybody else understands and they don't believe that I understand. They think I'm one of the like Middle Eastern who doesn't understand also. But anyway, so in the book, another major point is prey on a different racial group. So Englishman type of human is preyed on by black skin Americans through the prostitutes, which they have as, and they're the pimp. So remember this. What else? So, the other points, okay. So there are certain themes which come up, which are like sort of like airplanes are like readily used by like everybody. It wasn't that long ago, there were airplanes, but it's not like, in the like early 2000s and everything. It's definitely way, way earlier than we have September 11, 2001. So it's like more of a concept of get to a safe location in some of the characters. Like if I remember correctly, a very influential pimp in the book, if I understand correctly, he's from Arkansas, which is in the USA South. I guess that's where he's of. And he had to, after his mother, I believe, was murdered by a white, like Englishman type background. Some of them are like, I understand like German and like different genome, but I'm just saying like Englishman relative type human. In a rape scenario, his mother is murdered and his father tries to get revenge, attacks the white guy who does the murder or like the rape. I guess the rape and murder, I forget, of his wife. But then he's like essentially in a sense like lynched basically. And his like Sweet Jones, I guess, I just looked up the character names because I haven't read the book in like a year or so and I have a bad memory. But Sweet Jones basically escapes to Chicago, to Illinois, to the north, out of the South, because the South is disproportionately, if you have experience with the USA, they think, no, it's like that. No. The South is very racist. The South is very, very controlling and very violent. And, I've been through the USA South in a sense. So, talking like the old Confederacy type South. So basically he escapes and he goes to the North and he's like a very cold-blooded human, and they say he like murdered some humans, things like this. You have these sort of individuals, but Iceberg Slim is like apparently the writer of the book, the character of the writer, and it's supposed to be something like an autobiography. But he is a like genius level IQ sort of individual, and he was getting a university education, a college education, and things just go bad because of how his father and his mother had like poor interactions. But you know, if you look at certain individuals and like what the reality is eventually, it does mirror like a human issue. So like when there was war, I guess Napoleon attacking into Russia. I don't know too much about those eras. I studied like somewhat like after, like around the World War II eras, disproportionately with my history degree, and like earlier with the ancient Roman Republic and Roman Empire. But you know, when Napoleon is fighting into Russia, I believe, he gets like in trouble because of the snow and because of the cold. So this is an actual fact, like factually true reality. Some of them were going up to Chicago because they needed the protection of the cold. It doesn't come up in the book because the book doesn't give like this many details about like actual like inter-group warfare. As much, it deals with the sort of legal side of things. In a moment, I'll be back. Anyways, just to continue and sort of wrap this up a little bit. So a lot of the concepts are about racial warfare and using women in the process. But trust me, when I say I think those three facts, a biggest of the facts, or I guess four facts, a biggest of the facts is so Iceberg Slim sort of rejoices and loves when a woman leaves him. And this is obvious, explained like the way I'm going to say it, because you have other women on like Earth to pursue and to enjoy, because as males, we get tired of women after a while. I'm not sure if women are different, but they sort of rely on us, so they get like somewhat more attached after a certain time. So there's this, there's the concept of, you know, stay out of the women. Don't be the, as Iceberg Slim, I believe, so lovingly calls the white pimps, a like gigolo, like lover pimp or whatever. So stay out of the sex with the women and collect the money. You have the concept of use a different race, prey on a different race with the women. Let the women go with a different race and destroy themselves, and you just collect and do your business actually. And I forget the fourth concept. Oh my God, just read the book, you'll enjoy it, bye.